welcome back. Day 4 of the challenge. You made it back. You made it here. Someone just posted in the comments, she decided to be here today. She's never done something like this for 4 days in a row. I hope you are celebrating the heck out of the fact that you are back here. Whether you're listening to the replay or you're live, celebrate that crap. Like, celebrate the fact that you have made it to this point. I just think we severely underestimate the importance of celebration in our journey. And I think some of you are starting to see that. Some of you are starting to see, I've seen posts in the group about how you really struggle with celebration. What a beautiful thing to to be put in front of you, right? Have that mirror in front of you of, oh my gosh, I struggle with celebration. How can I celebrate? How could I celebrate? What would bringing celebration into my journey, how would that change things for me? So I'm so proud of you, so glad that you're back. Yesterday was such a big day. Was it a big day for you guys? I think it was a big day for a lot of you because I got a lot of messages. I worked with a lot of you guys in the group. So if you're here live or on the replay, please drop down in the comments what was the biggest takeaway for you. Remember, I said at the beginning of this week, I said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I've interacted with some of you, and some of you are like, I just stumbled onto your stuff, Amber. I don't really know why. It was just like this coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that you're here because you're ready for what I have to offer. And you've already started to see that it's a little bit different than maybe some of the other, fitness content that you've consumed. And I think it's really important that, again, I talked about pouring out your cup at the beginning of the week. And a lot of you did that with me. You've come with an open mind. You've come ready to receive the things that you needed to receive for your journey. And so that's why I want to know what your takeaway was, because there was a lot of content yesterday. And some of it was for you and some of it maybe wasn't for you. But what was the piece yesterday that was like, that was for me? That was in the presentation because that was for me. Heidi said, action creates clarity. I think that's so beautiful, something awesome to take away. Kim said the symptom is not the problem. I'm glad that you picked up on that. Joanna said buffering with food. That's me. Now that I'm aware, I feel like I know what to do to be more mindful about it. Awesome. Sheridan said confusion and overwhelm means I'm learning something new and action creates clarity. So great. Nicole said, yesterday the biggest takeaway was messy action is better than no action. Life is messy sometimes, and just because it gets messy does not mean that I need to give up on myself. Becky said, my belief, losing weight is hard. Wrong. It doesn't have to be that way. That's awesome. Ingrid said, clearing my head of long-lived beliefs. Sue said doing at least one thing is better than doing nothing. Yeah, really getting out of that all or nothing mindset. It was interesting. I put up a poll yesterday on my Instagram stories and I asked you which of the beliefs, the roots of self-sabotage did you most identify with? And by far, hands down, the biggest one that a lot of you struggle with is the all or nothing thinking. And I think it's so interesting because I think a lot of us have heard that term before, all or nothing thinking, and yet we still fall into it. And so we start to see, oh man, I'm doing this more often than maybe I even thought of falling into this all or nothing thinking. And like I said yesterday, awareness is the first step towards shifting it. Desiree said, when you change the way you think about things, the things that you think about change. Cheryl says confusion or overwhelm means you're learning. That was such a big thing for me when I started to understand that. When I started to understand that confusion and overwhelm was actually a process that I needed to go through, and that I didn't just need to run away from it, that it was actually a sign that I was on the right track and I just needed a way to get through it, to move through it. Sue said, you're never behind, you're exactly where you need to be. Such a great thing to take away from this journey. So often we self-sabotage simply because we tell ourselves we're behind, which is a story. It's not actually true, but we tell ourselves we're behind to give ourselves the permission to quit. Don't do that. Don't give yourself the permission to quit. The only way that you never reach, the only way you can guarantee you will not reach the goal that you have set is to quit. That's the only way. Awesome. So proud of you. I'm so proud that you're back. So yesterday we confronted those forms of self-sabotage. We acknowledged that it is this enemy that you're going to encounter on your journey. And I helped you prepare a little bit for what you're going to do when you meet that self-sabotaging behavior and really figuring out where that self-sabotaging behavior. But by this point, you're probably starting to think about, okay, this has been great and we've laid this beautiful foundation, Amber, but I also know that action creates results. And so how can we start to understand what type of action do we need to be creating? And how can we make sure that the action that we're taking is the highest yielding action that we can take, right? I don't know about you, I'm a mom of 4, And I'm not sitting around eating bonbons all day. I don't have the luxury of having like all the time in the world, nor do I have all the energy in the world. So when I take action on something, I need it to be high yield action. I need it to be like I'm putting energy into it and it's gonna move the needle the furthest amount the needle can be moved. I'm not about just like taking action just to take action, okay? So I wanna talk today about some of the most effective action, some of the most high yield action that we can be taking. Now, I talked about on day one, remember I talked about the logical levels. And we talked about how as you move up the logical levels, it creates more change. And I made the point that behavior is maybe more towards the bottom of the logical levels. And what was at the top? Identity. And I made the point that action doesn't always have to be in the behavior realm. That action can be up in the identity. It can be up in the beliefs, okay? And so I want you to start to change the way you think about this journey, where a lot of times we think the work is the eating. We think the work is the working out, right? And I want you to start to shift and understand that the work, the action, when it's higher up on those logical levels, when it's in those beliefs and that identity realm, that's still action, and it starts to cause a cascading effect on the rest of the logical levels. Okay, so you may have heard of what is called the Pareto principle. This is a principle that shows up in many aspects of life, that 20% of the effort produces 80% of the result. And so I'm going to be talking about some of the 20% today, some of the high yield stuff that's going to actually move you towards the result that you want. Okay. Now, when we start talking about what do I do, how do I start to think about weight loss, how do I start to make this happen, oftentimes we have this false dichotomy in our head. And I don't know about you, but maybe you've experienced this as well. We start thinking about, I want to lose weight, and so I have to do things to be able to make that happen. And we start to get into these situations where we feel this push and pull between two sides of ourselves. It's like, I want this result, so I need to change my behaviors, but that's not really that fun. I don't really enjoy that. And so we have this dichotomy between, I need to choose something that's effective, that works, that drives me towards the results that I want, or I can enjoy my life. I can, YOLO. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us have felt that push and pull. We can bring up the slide too, Michael. But I feel like a lot of us have felt that push and pull between, do I want my journey and my plan to be effective, or do I want it to be enjoyable? And a lot of us are like, effective. Friday hits, enjoyable, right? It's like, I can stick to a plan throughout the weekdays, and then when I get to the weekend, it's like, I just want to enjoy life. I don't want to track. I don't want to work out. I don't want to hit my numbers. And so we find this cycle, and we find this push-pull between, is my plan going to be effective, or is my plan going to be enjoyable, right? And what I want to offer to you is that there can be an overlap between these two circles, and that it doesn't have to be an either or. Okay, that there is an overlap, and when we find the overlap for you, right, because your overlap is going to be different than somebody else, and we can create a plan that is both. It is both effective. It drives you to the results that you want. It creates the change in your body that you want, and at the same time, it's enjoyable, which in turn makes it more effective. Because remember what I said before? The only way to not reach your goal is to quit. And what is the number one reason we quit? Because we freaking don't like it. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. Okay? So have you ever considered that making something more enjoyable, more fun, is actually going to make it more effective? Okay? So we've talked a lot, I've talked a lot about, especially on day one, about this idea of creating a customized plan for yourself, how a one-size-fits-all plan really doesn't fit anybody well. And if you haven't had success in the past, it's often because you're trying to fit yourself into somebody else's plan. Instead of, one that wasn't actually created for you, was created for that person, and you're like, let me just put myself in your plan, and you're wondering why this round peg is not fitting into the square hole. So what I want to start to build is a framework of how we can start to think about your journey and who you need to be. Remember on day one, we talked about the question isn't what do I need to do, it's who do I need to be to get my results, to be able to move forward. So I like to think of it in terms of this framework. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this, and we're going to fill in these quadrants. But on the y-axis, I've talked about this idea of customized plan versus a generic one-size-fits-all plan, right? And you understand by this point how important it is to have a plan that actually matches you. We all know that a customized, tailored dress to you is going to fit better than one that you just pull off the rack. It's the same thing with when we're creating a plan. The more customized it is to you, the more effective it's going to be for you, and also the more enjoyable. And then on the x-axis, we all know that we need to make decisions in our journey. True or false? Right? As you're going through your journey, you need to make decisions. Now, what determines your success is how you make those decisions. A lot of times we are making decisions from a very emotional place. And hopefully by this point in our journey together, you've started to see that making decisions from an emotional, from a reactive space doesn't often get you very good results. And what if we moved you over to the other side where we're making more data-driven decisions? We're making more scientific decisions rather than an emotional roller coaster that a lot of us are on when we are on our fitness journey. What happens in your journey when you shift from emotional decisions to more logical ones, to more data-driven decisions? So I'm going to come back to the board, and we're going to start to fill this out. Looking at this diagram, we're going to talk first about the woman in this quadrant. The woman who is following some sort of generic cookie cutter plan, right? Like you think of just classic diets you can name: keto, intermittent fasting, Weight Watchers, fill in the blank of these generic plans that are just this is the plan, now you must follow it, right? It's the same for everybody. There's no customization. And this is also the woman who continues to make very emotional decisions in her journey. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had this experience. You get up in the morning, you step on the scale, you see a number, you are flooded with a feeling of emotion, and now you make decisions from that place of emotion about what the day is going to be like. It's going to be a terrible day. I'm up. It influences what you eat that day, right? Maybe it's oh my gosh, I can't imagine that number. I need to not eat today. Or that number is way too high. I'm going to do an extra hour at the gym today, right? So it's a very emotionally driven decision of how you go through your journey, the decisions that you make, the actions that you take in your journey. This is what I affectionately, love you so much, like to call the yo-yo dieter. Okay? The yo-yo dieter is one who, it's like a roller coaster. You're on this emotional roller coaster. It's when it's working, you're as high as a kite. And then when it's not working, you're as low as low, right? And so it's this emotional roller coaster that you're on. Now the thing with the yo-yo dieter is that a lot of you are very good at losing weight. You're very good at it. What you struggle with is maintaining it. So you've seen this pattern of losing weight and then rebounding. And then losing weight, you get to the top again. Oh my gosh, you freak out, emotional, go on a diet, lose the weight, rebound. Oh my gosh, emotion, lose the, right? It's this roller coaster of dieting. Yeah, and some of you are commenting in the comments that's you. And as we go through this, I want you to be looking for that. It's where do I show up in this paradigm? What's been my default in the past? Remember, we're not necessarily taking the past with them in the future, but when we understand the past, we can change the future. So this isn't about guilt or shame or I've been bad or I can't believe that I did that all my life. It's about understanding and awareness, because when we understand ourselves and we're aware, we can make new decisions in the future. Okay, number 2 quadrant is someone who has, follows, again, a generic cookie cutter diet plan. But they do make some data-driven decisions, but their data-driven decisions is is it working, is it not? Because if it's not working, I'm out. Okay? So it's you start the diet, it's working, I'm so committed, why it's working, it stops, I'm out. And you jump to a new diet. Let's try this one. Maybe this will work. I'm so committed while it's working, stops working, I'm out. Let's try this diet, right? So you're hopping from diet to diet, as if there's some magical diet, and if you try enough diets over your lifetime, you'll find the magical one, okay? This is what we call the diet hopper. Okay? Someone who's very committed when it's working, and as soon as it doesn't work, the data says it doesn't work, they're out. Okay? So a lot of you are identifying with this. Again, it's not about judgment, it's about understanding. Because when we understand, we can change. Okay, in order to fill out the rest of this framework, we got to go back to understanding some other stuff. So we're going to go back to learning about some myths when it comes to losing weight. Now, many of you know I have a background in nursing. Love science, taught and TA'd for anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology, and I love learning about science. So we're going to get into a little bit of science, but not a ton. So if you're not a big science geek like me, that's okay. I have learned the science, and I'm going to distill it down to make it really simple and easy for you. But we need to understand some of these myths that are floating around out in the ethos, in the internet, on social media, so that you can really be successful and make sure the actions you're taking are high-yield actions. So let's talk through myth number 1 when it comes to what produces body composition changes, what produces weight loss. And myth number 1 is that losing weight is about finding the right diet. As if the unicorn is out there, the prince is out there, and you just need to kiss enough guys to find your prince. So let's dispel this a little bit. Now, when I use the word diet, people get all up in arms and they have all sorts of connotations about what I mean when I say the word diet. So let me define what I mean when I say the word diet. I simply mean rules and lifestyle created for and by somebody else that you try to fit your life into, right? Did you create Whole30? Unless you're Melissa Hartwig. The answer is no, you did not create it. So she created it, she created this paradigm, and you just popped yourself into it. So diets are rules and lifestyle created for and by somebody else that we try to fit ourselves into. And this can look like a lot of different rules or structures, right? Some are like, cut out all the sugar, cut out all the carbs, don't eat after 7 p.m., don't eat before 7 p.m., don't, intermittent fast for this long, only eat clean foods, don't eat any processed foods, hit your macros. We're gonna talk about that last one. I included that as a diet rule, okay? What's the problem with trying to fit yourself into somebody else's rules, somebody else's framework? The biggest problem that I find, and listen and see if this resonates for you as well, is that when you're fitting yourselves into another person's diet, and they have created the rules and guidelines, that there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. There's a right way to do Whole30 and there's a wrong way to do Whole30. Right? There's rules and guidelines. I would not even say guidelines, I say rules. And the problem starts to become, if you're doing it the right way, we feel really good about ourselves. I'm following the rules, I'm doing it exactly. I'm intermittent fasting for 8 hours and eating for 16 hours, right? I'm following the rules. This is what was told to me it was gonna make a difference. Here's the problem with it. There's a couple problems. One of them is what happens when it stops working. And some of you guys have experienced this. You're like, I did the Whole30, I did keto, I did intermittent fasting, I did clean eating, and I followed all the rules. And it didn't work. Now what? I did it, but I didn't get the results, so now what do I do? So there's even problems if you follow the rules. Now on the converse, which is a lot of us, is we've struggled to stick to those rules. And what happens is we are then blamed for the lack of results. Well, of course you didn't get the results. You didn't do it right. Why did you think that you're gonna be able to, you're supposed to be eating clean and you had an ice cream bar. So you're the problem. You need to try harder. You need to follow the rules better. Okay, and so I think setting up this paradigm of opening your eyes to what happens when you try to follow someone else's plan and why it hasn't worked in the past can be really helpful for releasing some of that shame and that guilt of whatever you've done in the past, okay? So the real issue is not what diet is right. It's not like there's a magic diet out there and you just need to find her. Rather, it's about what is effective and enjoyable for you. And that means it has to be customized to you. Because look, what is effective for my body and what is enjoyable for me is not going to be the same as what is effective for your body and what is enjoyable for your body. So we have to be able to figure out how to find that for you. But before we do that, we have to separate belief about weight loss from the science. What actually causes fat loss? Okay, so we're going to start talking a little bit and bringing into this conversation this idea of macros. And if this is your first time being introduced to macros, don't worry, I'm going to take you through it. If you're like, Amber, I'm like a macro counting genius, don't worry, there's still going to be things of the way that I approach macro counting that will be very different from anything you've ever heard any other macro coach say. So stick with me. So when I say macros, what the heck do I mean? I don't mean macaroni and cheese. I mean macros are the part of our food that give it calories. It is short for the word macronutrients. Macro meaning large, nutrients. Large nutrients. Nutrients our body needs in large amounts. And they are the things that are in our food that give us calories. Those three things are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Three things that are in our food that give our body calories. Now, you may have heard this term of counting macros. Again, some of you are very familiar with this term. Some of you are like, this is brand new to me. This is going to be valuable for both of you. Now, when people say counting macros, people have all sorts of ideas of what that means. Let me tell you what I mean when I say counting macros. I simply mean keeping track of the amount of carbs, fat, and protein that you consume. You are already eating a certain amount of macros every single day, whether or not you're paying attention to it or not. You are already consuming certain macros. Counting macros to me is just paying attention to them. It's being intentional about it instead of just like letting it happen. We're already eating macros every single day. Would you rather just let it happen or would you rather be intentional about it? And which of those is going to get you better results? Now, whenever I start to introduce macro counting, people are always like, but Amber, what the heck is the difference between like macro counting and calorie counting? That's like the biggest thing. Why is macro counting so awesome? Why is this something that has changed, women's relationship with food in their body and the results that they're getting? And really, we could talk forever about this, but I've really boiled it down to 4 main reasons why macro counting is so awesome for creating an effective and enjoyable plan for your goals. Reason number 1 is that it helps you to maximize fat loss and minimize muscle loss. When people are just paying attention to calories, oftentimes, in order to drop calories, they are dropping their calories from protein. They're not consuming enough protein. And if you are not consuming enough protein, your body is going to find those amino acids. It's going to find protein in your body. And where is the biggest source of protein in your body? In our muscles. And so what will often happen is women will go on diets. They'll have very low protein. And so they will see the scale go down. But in fact, what they're losing is muscle. And I don't know about you, but that's not what I mean. When I say I want weight loss, I don't want to be losing muscle, I want to be losing fat. And so when we make sure that we're eating enough of each of the macronutrients, we can make sure that the weight that you're losing is not muscle, but it's actually fat. We can keep the muscle and lose the fat. And counting macros helps you to be able to do that. Reason number 2 is that it helps to keep your food choices balanced. This elusive idea of like, quote unquote, balance, most women that I talk to feel like they have never been able to find balance. It's like one extreme or the other. You're either on a diet or you're off a diet. You're eating really healthy or you're eating very not healthy, right? You're doing really good or you're doing really bad. And this idea of finding a middle moderation is like, I don't know where that is, Amber, because I've never experienced it. I've only experienced these extremes. And macro counting can really help you to find that balance. I think about it like training wheels on a bike. Are you going to always need to have those training wheels? No, but it can help you to find the center of balance. It can help you to figure out, oh, this is what it feels like to feel balance. Okay, awesome. I can take the training wheels off. I don't have to have those on forever. But it helps you to stop falling over side to side and instead find the middle ground, find balance. Number 3 is a really important one, especially for my friends who are listening, who really feel a lot of shame and judgment around food and feel like your relationship with food is not very good right now and you would like it to be better. Macro counting helps to remove the good and the bad food labels that we often put, that create a lot of that guilt, that create a lot of that shame, that create a lot of that emotion that we have tied to our foods. It helps to strip away the judgment. It helps to strip away the emotion and allow us to make, again, very logical, data-driven decisions instead of these emotionally reactive decisions when it comes to our food. And then last, it is sustainable because you can include the foods you like to eat. All foods can fit when we're counting macros. We don't have to give up the things that we love in order to get the results we want. It's this idea of how can we find that middle ground, enjoyable and effective. And macro counting allows you to be able to find where that sweet spot is for your body, okay? So going back to this graphic about, the diet rules, did you notice that I put hit your macros at the very bottom? Why the heck did I do that? This is such an important, again, if you are like, you've been a macro counter, you know what macro counting is, you're kind of tuned out because you're like, this is all really boring to me, Amber, come back to me, because this is something that you're probably not hearing from other people. And that is that just like any other diet, macro counting can be turned into a diet. I like to teach macro counting as a tool. And that tool, just like a hammer, it can be used to build a house or break down a house. And the macro counting is the same way. And what I see a lot of coaches and women doing is taking the concept, the tool of macro counting, and turning it into a diet with all the problems of all the other diets. There's a right way to macro count, there's a wrong way to macro count. You gotta hit your macros. If you don't, well then you're the problem and you just need to try harder, right? So all of those things that we outlined about like why diets are a problem and don't actually work, I see a lot of people doing the same thing with macro counting, and it drives me bonkers because it doesn't have to be that way. So if you are someone who is counting macros by you set your numbers and then you tell yourself you have to hit them, and then you get frustrated when you don't, I want you to consider that just perhaps you have turned macro counting into a diet. And that brings us to this third quadrant of what I like to call the macro dieter. Okay? Oops. So the macro dieter is the woman who, yes, she has a customized plan. She has her macros. They are all set, customized for her and for her body and the results that she would like to see. However, she still is making very emotionally charged, emotional-driven decisions. It's like, I hit my macros, I feel really great. I didn't hit my macros, I'm a loser. This is never gonna work for me. The macro dieter gets very frustrated with the process. She feels like it has to be one way. Well, I have to weigh all of my food. If I don't, then I'm doing it wrong. I have to be able to create recipes, because if I don't, then I'm doing it wrong, and it's not gonna work. It's very black and white, it's very linear, it's very like, this is the structure of macro counting, my friends. You have to hit your macros, or else it's not gonna work. Right, so again, I hope that you're seeing, and a lot of you guys are seeing in the comments, so it sounds like this is really like hitting home for you, is that you're starting to see that you've taken a tool and you simply have put it into the category with the problems with all of the other diets that you have tried in the past, which is that there is a right way and a wrong way, and if you don't do it the right way, well then, better try harder. Okay, so this is the macro dieter. We have one quadrant left. And that is what I like to call the macro scientist. Okay? The macro scientist is the woman who, yes, has a customized plan. She's been able to understand and set her macros based off of the results she would like to see with her body, what she's willing to do, her lifestyle, etc., things that are enjoyable to her. But the macro scientists know that this process is not static. There's not just one way to do it, and that it can be customized to her. And that it doesn't have to look like set your macros, hit your macros every single day. That there is a way to integrate a process that makes it enjoyable and effective for you, and that you get to customize that and figure out what that's going to look like. The macro scientist makes data-driven decisions. She understands her body and the feedback that her body is getting her. So her body gives her feedback, she understands it, she's able to process that and analyze what's going on with my body, and she's able to pivot. She's able to make changes. She's able to make adaptations. Whereas the macro dieter is very strict and rigid, the macro scientist is much more fluid and is able to make this process fun, enjoyable, effective, like all of the things that we're looking for when we're trying to create results in our life. And so by this point, you're probably seeing, hey, I may identify with some of these other quadrants, but the real goal is to how do I get to be the macro scientist? And I'm gonna help you to be able to do that. But before I do it, let's take a quick break and let's do our bingo card. How many of you guys are getting close to bingo or have gotten bingo? The secret word for today is the word success. So you can fill that in on your bingo card. We are almost done with the secret words. Some of you I know have already gotten bingo. Congratulations. Go for blackout. I hope you guys are having fun with this. This is really meant to be enjoyable, to be able to make it a little bit fun, to be able to give you some other content to be able to consume if that's something that you're looking for. But it is not required for your success. Okay, so don't let it stress you out. Don't let it overwhelm you. But hopefully it's been a little bit fun for you. Okay, back to the slides. So this idea of diet rules, remember I put in hit your macros as like a diet rule, because a lot of people turn macro counting into a diet. It's important to understand that all of these rules don't work because of the rule. They work if and when the rule creates you eating fewer calories. Okay, so notice, you don't lose weight because you cut out sugar. It is not the sugar causing you to lose weight. If cutting out sugar causes you to eat fewer calories, then you will see weight loss. So in and of itself, intermittent fasting does not create weight loss. Independent of everything else, it does not create weight loss. If intermittent fasting causes you to eat fewer calories, then you will see weight loss. Hitting your macros in and of itself doesn't cause you to lose weight. If hitting your macros allows you to eat fewer calories, then you will see weight loss. And so what you're probably starting to see by now is that really weight loss is created by a caloric deficit. And understanding this is so incredibly valuable for you moving forward. Now, we gotta have a little conversation here about the language. Remember I talked about how important words are? I've used the word weight loss a lot, and that is because that's the word I hear people using. But I want you to understand that weight loss is not the same thing as fat loss. They are different, okay? Weight loss is not the same thing as fat loss. And I don't know about you, but when I say I want to lose weight, I'm usually talking about fat. I'm not saying I want to lose muscle, I want to lose organ tissue, I want to lose water weight, I don't want to cut off my arm, right? Cutting off your arm would make you lose weight. It's not usually what people mean when they tell me they want to lose weight. And so words matter. What you really want to lose is fat. And fat and weight are not the same things. I love to show this picture. Some of you have seen it before, that's okay. Still can resonate. This is me at 142 pounds. I weigh the same in both pictures. But if you're looking at this, you can see my body composition is vastly different. I have much more fat on the left, and I have less fat and more muscle on the right. And so I hope you're starting to see at this point that weight and fat are not the same thing. Unless you think I am the only person in the world that this is true for, meet Lene. Lene, this is a picture of Lene at 150 pounds. Again, you can see her body composition is very different at this weight. And so I want to start to shift the way that we are speaking and the language that we are using, and I would love us to start focusing on losing fat. Because that's my guess what most of you mean when you say you want to lose weight. Now, we're going to circle back around to this concept. But in the meantime, I want to know if you've ever considered this idea of believing that the perfect diet is out there for you. What if that is only leading you to thinking the grass is greener somewhere else, rather than doing what it takes to make your grass greener? And I think this is such a valuable reflection moment. It's like you jumping from diet to diet, thinking that the next one's always going to be the thing. What if that's preventing you from doing what it takes to make whatever you're doing the thing? Okay? Because success doesn't come from the specific diet. Success comes from you. And you bring you into every diet you start. And that's why we started this week. That's why this is day 4. I didn't start the week talking about this. And the reason is because this kind of stuff that I'm talking about isn't effective until you understand the foundational things that I taught you in days 1 through 3. Because you bring you into every diet that you start. So if we don't focus on you, no wonder you're not getting the results. Okay, myth number 2 is this idea that to lose weight, I need to just eat less calories. Now, wait a minute, Amber. You just said that I need to create a caloric deficit. You're like speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Stay with me. Eating less and less and less is a losing strategy. Because if it was true, if that was really true, that the key to success was just eating less and less, then if you ate 0 calories, wouldn't you get the fastest results? Well, no, you would die. Like eventually you would die. So we know that the key is not just to eat less and less and less and less. It's not the key. That's like saying if you put less, the less gas you put in the tank of your car, the better gas mileage you get. It doesn't work that way, okay? There is this balance between creating a caloric deficit, which I've already said is scientifically required. Can't beat science. It is scientifically required you need to create a caloric deficit. And at the same time, we need to make sure that your body has enough fuel to run optimally, to perform optimally, okay? And so what I like to start to help clients to see is that there's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot between, yes, we need to create a low enough calories that we're creating a deficit. Again, law of thermodynamics, we cannot go around that. That needs to be created. And at the same time, eating high enough of each of the macronutrients for optimal fueling. I like to think of the 3 macros as if they are fluids in a car. So, in your car, you think about your car running. Your car has gas, your car has radiator fluid, and your car has oil. Okay? There are 3 different fluids. If you have enough oil, but you don't have enough gas, you ain't going anywhere. If you have enough gas, but you have no oil, you ain't going anywhere. So it's not enough just to think about fluids in general, but we need to think about each of the 3 different fluids and make sure we have enough of each of the 3 different fluids to have our car run. It's the same thing with you. We want to create a caloric deficit, but we want to make sure we have enough of carbs, fat, and protein that we are optimally fueling our body and it is able to run. And so the key is finding this sweet spot. And again, this sweet spot is not the same for everybody. There is a sweet spot. You have a sweet spot. I know some of you are listening like, well, Amber, I guess I just don't have a sweet spot. No, my friend, you do. You have a sweet spot. Everybody has a sweet spot. It just is a matter of finding it. Okay? Can we go to the slide here? So I love to be able to share experiences from other women because I think it's so valuable in helping you to understand and see what is possible for yourself. Sarah says that she came into Macros 101 after years and years of yo-yo dieting. So holla to all my yo-yo dieters. Because of Macros 101, I finally cracked the code as to why I haven't been able to maintain my weight loss. Remember we said, like, for the yo-yo dieters, it's not the losing weight that's hard, it's the maintaining that loss. I started Macros 101 eating 500 calories a day. Holler to my, undereaters. And thanks to the help of Amber, I'm now eating 1,600 calories a day, and I'm able to maintain my weight loss. Because everything I learned in Macros 101, I never have to buy another program again. Second person is Holly. Because of Macros 101, I've reversed. We'll talk more about reversing tomorrow, so if that term is not familiar to you, I got you. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I reversed from eating 1,350 calories to 2,500 calories, and I look the exact same. Nothing added but nearly 1,150 calories. 1,150. I'm stronger physically and mentally. I'm thankful I can eat 2,500 calories and gain 0 pounds. I'm thankful I don't have to cut at 1,350 again, ever. To eating 2,500 calories and gaining 0 pounds. Okay, so this idea that the key to success is eating less and less and less, it's a broken strategy. It doesn't work. A lot of you have tried it. It doesn't actually produce the results that you want. And like I said, we'll talk more about what we can do about that tomorrow. All right, let's do a little bit of pivot. We're going to have Briquel share her story. Now, Briquel is going to talk a little bit about her reverse as well. So again, some of you are know what I'm talking about when I say a reverse diet. Some of you are I've never heard that term in my life before. Don't worry, I got you. We're going to talk about it more tomorrow. But Briquel is going to talk about her experience of eating more calories and how I was able to get her out of this pattern of trying to eat less and less and less, which by now you understand is a losing strategy. So let's hear Briquel's story.
Hi, my name's Briquel Jackson. I'm 30, a wife, a mom of 3, and a people manager in the finance industry. I came into Macros 101 a total macro dieter, and I'm leaving a macro scientist who gained 3 pounds and is eating 500 calories more a day. Some backstory on me: I am no stranger to weight loss or dieting. I've been dieting pretty much all my life, as I was an overweight child who was bullied for my size and eventually turned to unhealthy weight loss habits as a teenager to lose the weight. Struggled with disordered eating all through junior high and high school, and eventually, even after losing the weight, the obsession with my size and weight just never went away, and it controlled my life. It actually ended up causing me to be sent home early from a church mission that I had gone on, and it was the most heartbreaking experience I'd ever had up until that age, which was 20. I came home, got the help that I needed, went to counseling, and actually ended up getting married at 21 and started having kids really quickly. When I started having kids, I felt good, but I realized really quickly that that obsession would come back, and it did as I was gaining weight, being pregnant, and just living with 3 kids under the age of 8. So I realized that I wanted to change. I felt like my kids deserved more than a mom who had to go on a 5-mile run every time she ate ice cream with them. What I learned in Macros 101 was that, as noble as that was, the person who really deserved the change was me. I deserved to live a life that I wanted to live instead of one that was ruled by this obsession. Like I said, I came in thinking that I was a dieter. My plan was to uncover what it was I was missing in confidence in your numbers and build your workouts so that I could lose more weight or see it happen faster. And within the first day, I realized that what I needed to do was actually execute a reverse, which was tough and scary. I can't tell you how many days I started the day by weighing myself, changing my numbers in my FitnessPal back to cut numbers, only to switch them back after talking to Amber, one of the other coaches in Circle, and having them ask me a question about what I was doing and, more importantly, why. I hesitated to make this video because I feel like my transformation is still taking place. While I do go to the gym, I stay far away from the elliptical and from the treadmill where I used to spend hours of my life. I open Facebook and watch videos of Eve and Katie and other rock stars who remind me it's okay to add weight, but to the bar. When I get down on myself, I pull up podcast episodes like from Ellen, who remind me that I'm awesome now, that I don't have to achieve something before I feel like I'm worthy. Macros 101 taught me that I was strong enough to make the decision every day to have a different life, and that I was worthy of keeping that commitment to myself.
What a powerful story. One of the things that I love about Brickell is that she mentions some community members. You may be like, who's Katie? Who's Ellen? Who's Eve? But those are community members. And I think there's such power when you surround yourself with other women who are on the same journey as you. And you can see how Brickell really gained so much strength from these other women who were going through this process. Now, the fun little story about Brickell is that, a lot of people go through the challenge. But I remember Brickell. I remember Brickell in the challenge because she was so on the ball. She was always commenting. She was always doing the assignments. She was right there. And very quickly, as I started to get to know her, even before she joined Macros 101 in the challenge, I was like, this girl needs a reverse. And I knew that was going to be the next step for her. And I also knew that she was going to be very resistant to it, as most people who that's the next step for them. And it was fun when I saw her inside of Macros 101 and I saw her transition over from the 5-day challenge into Macros 101. And we were able to have these coaching conversations with her. And you can see where she's at on the other side of this. And again, for those of you who have thought about a reverse or thinking about a reverse, think maybe a reverse is for me, it can feel very scary. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow and how to kind of make that decision for yourself. But I think being able to share stories of women who are on the other side of it and seeing that she didn't die, she didn't blow up, she is more happier now and more fulfilled now than she was. She thought the secret was more weight loss, right? She thought the secret was Amber's gonna give me the secret to faster weight loss. And she realized that the real secret was that eating less and less was a losing strategy and that she needed to change up her strategy. Okay, myth number 3. To lose weight, all you have to do, Amber, is you just have to cut out all of the unhealthy food that you're eating. You just need to eat better food, eat healthy food, and then bada bing, bada boom, you got it. So why is this a myth? I think we all know that healthy food is good for us. I'm not saying that that's not the case. We all know that broccoli has more nutritional value than brownies, okay? But here's the problem. When we start to think in all or nothing thinking and we cut out all of the unhealthy food, we start to create this cycle that I was very familiar with. Many of you may be very familiar with this cycle as well. And that is this restriction and binging cycle. So we tell ourselves, you cannot have that. I cannot eat. This is how it showed up for me. For me, it was you cannot eat any processed unhealthy food, Amber. And then Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, I was like, okay, you can do it. You can do it. No unhealthy food, no unhealthy food. Don't eat pizza, don't eat pizza, don't eat pizza, don't eat pizza, right? Just willpower, willpower my way to it. And by the end of the week, I had felt like I had run a marathon of fighting against myself the whole entire week. And so then Friday would roll around, my roommates would be like, hey, let's go get pizza. And I'm like, screw it. pizza! Because I had like run this marathon. I was tired of fighting against myself. So then I ate all the pizza because I felt really guilty that I was eating the pizza because I wasn't supposed to be eating the pizza, but here I was eating the pizza. So I ate more pizza than I probably needed. And then I was flooded with this like guilt and shame of like, Amber, why can't you freaking just get your act together? Why can't you just stop eating the food? Why can't you just eat the healthy food? Like, you're such a loser. Back to the cycle, like back to the start of the cycle. Monday, recommit, this week's gonna be better. I'm not gonna eat any bad foods, right? Like, tell me in the comments, please tell me I'm not alone. Please tell me I'm not the only one who has been through this cycle, okay? I like to kind of describe this to my clients as a pendulum. Now we can't leave this slide up too much because it like actually kind of makes me dizzy, but I liked it because it's like a pendulum that we think if I restrict, if I cut out all of the unhealthy foods, then I'm gonna be okay. But what that actually does by cutting out the unhealthy foods is it's like pulling back a pendulum and letting go, and then you swing to the other side and you wonder, why am I binging? So what's our solution? Restrict harder. But when you restrict harder and you let it go, you binge harder. And we have this idea for some reason that if I like just can like get this together and restrict well enough, then I'll be okay. But in reality, that restriction is like pulling back on a rubber band and letting it go and thinking that it's just gonna like softly fall to the middle and find balance and moderation. Okay? And so what you're starting to realize is that maybe your intent is to hit your goal faster. I think that's what a lot of women intend. When they restrict, when they cut calories, when they pull back, their intent is to do that, is to hit their goal faster. And what you're realizing now with this pendulum analogy is that restricting and binging actually slows down the process. By removing everything that brings you joy, it's only causing you to binge on it. And we all know that binging is going to only hinder us from actually getting to where we want to go. Okay? So it really is not a matter of unhealthy foods or healthy foods. Fat loss, fat gain is caused by your calories and your macros. And we can start to separate the judgment, the shame, the emotion from our food and look at it like a scientist, then we start to develop a better relationship with food. We can release the guilt and shame, we release the judgment, and we get out of that pendulum that so many of you are swinging on, and we find the middle ground. The way to find here on the pendulum is not to keep pulling it back. It's never just gonna go boop and find moderation. So what is the key? It's to stop restricting. It's to stop withholding. It's to stop pulling back. Stop pulling back on that so we can make those little pendulums smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you're able to find the happy medium and moderation, which is what most of us want. Okay? I love to share my story because I hope that it gives you confidence and an understanding that it's possible for you. So this is a picture of me when I went on my first macro counting journey back in 2016. I ended up losing 10 pounds. I got a six-pack, which if you know my story, that was my goal. That was my intention. I wanted to get a six-pack. It's really not all it's cracked up to be, just FYI, but that was my goal. And doing this, I ate ice cream every single night. Every single night, I ate ice cream. Now, I didn't binge on ice cream. I didn't eat a whole pint of ice cream, but because I included ice cream in my plan, it was enjoyable. It was fun for me. I didn't hate it. I got to eat ice cream every night, and I was able to get results. And that's what's possible for you as well. So it's really not a matter of cutting out unhealthy foods. It's a matter of including them in moderation in your plan for success. I think about macro counting a lot like a budget. Where are my like budgeting gals? I can budget like the best of them. Let me tell you, you want to like talk about like budgeting and you need a budget and like Dave Rant, like I got you, girl. I'm like on the train. Okay, so I really understood like budgeting from like a monetary standpoint, but I think about macro counting in terms of budgeting for the foods that you're eating. So if you have $100, I can either go to Lululemon and I can buy one pair of leggings, or I can go to Target and I can buy like 4 pairs of leggings, right? Same amount of money, but I get 1 pair of leggings versus 3 pairs of leggings. Now the quality is different, like they're not like the same exact product. And I think it's really important to understand that like going to Lululemon is not good or bad. Going to Target's not good or bad. It's just like, what do you want to spend your money on? Do you want a $100 pair of leggings, or do you want 3 $30 pairs of leggings? You know, the choice is yours. And that's what I think about when we start to understand macro counting is it's like you start to figure out what is important to you, what is worth it to you, what do you want to include? You know, ice cream may be more calorically expensive than broccoli is, but there's room for a little bit of ice cream in everybody's diet. It doesn't have to be just broccoli, and you get to make that choice, and it's very empowering to be able to make the choice of what you want in your diet and what's important to you, what's effective, what's enjoyable, right? Okay, last story is from Jennifer. She said, before Macros 101, I struggled with the all or nothing mentality, right? Remember we said a lot of people struggled with that after yesterday, they told me that. I either had all of the things or none of the things. I could never find a middle ground. Macro counting taught me to eat the food that I enjoy. I don't really feel guilty eating pizza and candy. I finally feel like I am in control of my life. One more story I want to share with you. This is of a client. I will never forget this client. And there's been other clients like this, but I just have this very clear memory of this one client. I remember we were in a coaching call, and she came on and she said, Amber, I can't have candy anywhere in my house. I walk into my friend's house and they'll have candy in a dish or a bowl, and I'm like, how do you do that? How do you have candy on the table all the time and you don't eat it? She's like, I just can't keep it anywhere in my house. If I have it in my house, I will eat it. And we had I coached her and we had a coaching conversation, and I remember talking to her and saying, it is possible for you to be able to get there. And she was kind of like, yeah, I don't think so. I think you're wrong. And that was okay. She could think I was wrong. I kind of offered her that was something possible. We could get her there in the future. It was probably about 4 to maybe 6 months later. I'll never forget, she got on a coaching call, and the first thing that she said to me, she said, Amber, I have a bowl of candy on my dining room table, and I don't eat it. And I said, do you remember? She's like, yeah, I remember. She's like, I remember, I didn't believe you. I didn't believe that was possible for me. I thought I was just that person that just can't have candy in the house. That's who I was. And as she had done a lot of the work that we had done together, as she had done a lot of the identity shifting and the belief shifting and the work that I talk about, she got to that place where she's like, I'm that person now. I'm that person who can have candy on my counter and I don't eat it. And that was such a full circle moment for me, for that client, but for me as a coach, to be able to see. Some of you are listening to this thinking yeah, that could never be me. I'm not that type of person. But I want you to maybe just consider maybe you could be. And that maybe there are some steps that we could take together to be able to get you there. So this idea of these 4 identities, I would love for those of you guys who are listening to put into the chat which of these you currently identify with. Now again, just because you currently identify with something doesn't mean that's what you're going to take with you. Because we don't have to take the past with us. But by understanding, giving yourself some grace, realizing, oh gosh, this is where I've been. This has been the problem. And realizing that there is another way, that there's another identity, that there's another path that you can take that may be more effective and more enjoyable to be able to get the results that you want. And becoming the macro scientist can really open up a world of possibilities to you. So I'm seeing a lot of macro dieters that I think, especially for my friends who are coming with past experience with macros, a lot of you come in as macro dieters, and that's okay. You've learned a little bit about the tool, but you don't understand how to use it. You don't understand how to adjust your macros. For a lot of you, a coach has always done that for you. It's they tell you what to eat. They tell you when to change your macros. Now increase your carbs. Why? Who knows? The coach told me to do it. That's the classic macro dieter experience. Whereas the macro scientist understands that about her body. She knows how to make adjustments. She knows how to make shifts because she knows how to read the feedback from her body. Yo-yo dieter, good. Yo-yo, diet hopper. I don't diet, which is why I'm here. Again, I want you to expand that idea of what diet means. I'm not just saying a diet. A diet is anything that you're doing, right? Anything that you're eating is your current diet. Diet hopper turned into macro dieter. Awesome. Diet hopper, yo-yo dieters. Awesome. Again, be careful I'm a macro dieter, I can't change. No, you can. We can always shift. We can always change identity. We're going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to talk more tomorrow about how to do that. Right? Because you've identified, hey, if I could move into this macro scientist identity, that'd be really powerful for me. But how do we do that? That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. That's what I'm going to give you the steps for tomorrow. So make sure, last day, it's the last 100-meter dash towards the finish line. Come back. We're going to talk about those steps tomorrow. Can't wait to see you there.